suppression isn't new, and it's not really news. Voter suppression has been baked into the DNA of America because when you create democracy, you instinctively and intentionally have to allow those who disagree with you to have voice. But we often forget what democracy is truly about. It is not simply about the ability to cast a vote, it is also about access to power. And this is a nation that has been made great by those who fought to expand access to that power. Beginning with giving African Americans the titular right to vote, giving women the right to vote, making real the right to vote of African Americans. But we forget that it wasn't until 1924 that Native Americans were citizens of the United States, that their right to vote had been denied until the 20th century. We recognize that in the midst of raids from ICE, they're not simply trying to terrify those who are undocumented, they are suppressing the votes of those who are documented, who are citizens, but who are afraid that their families will be torn asunder if they speak up. We live in a nation that has been made progressive, not by our intention, but by our will. Because we have gone beyond what we intended when we decided that blacks were 3/5 human, when we decided that women should not be heard. We have gone beyond that generation after generation, but we are not done yet. And so my road to freedom, to a fair fight, begins with the right to vote. Because that power is so incredible that there are architectures that are designed to deny it every day. When we launched Fair Fight, it was because we decided that the taxonomy of voter suppression needed to be understood. That it is ballot, it's voter registration. The beginning of your right to vote begins with you getting on the rolls in the United States of America. And we have more than 3,000 different jurisdictions that are responsible for the oversight of that process. But there should not be 3,000 different democracies in the United States of America. Your rights should not differ depending on where you were born or where you happen to live. And therefore, voter registration has to be at the core of the fight against voter suppression. That means not only getting on the rolls, but staying on the rolls. In the state of Georgia, we had 1.4 million people who were purged from the rolls over the course of one person's tenure as Secretary of State, including a purging of 8% of the rolls on a single day in 2017, conveniently before he stood for office. Now, yes, there is absolutely a rightful reason to clean the rolls. Democrats and Republicans and independents agree you shouldn't vote if you're dead. But when people are taken off the rolls because you don't like the box that they checked listing who they are or who they vote for, that is wrong. And we know for a fact that thousands of Georgians were removed from the rolls, not because they weren't there, not because they didn't want to vote, but because of a combination of incompetence and malfeasance that denied the access to the right to vote. We also know that 53,000 people were put on what's called the exact match list and had their registration suspended. But this wasn't new. In 2009, they attempted to use the system, and the Justice Department said it had a high likelihood of being so discriminatory as to be unlawful, and they blocked it using the Voting Rights Act. But in the wake of Shelby v. Holder, when they struck down the heart of the Voting Rights Act, Secretary of State Brian Kemp decided to bring it back to life. But he didn't tell anyone. And in 2016, when we sued him the first time, we forced him to restore the rights of 34,000 people who were put on this list, people who were denied the right to vote because of clerical errors made by government bureaucrats. When he agreed not to use the system again, we rejoiced. Only a few months later, he got the legislature to pass the law to let him do it again, and this time 53,000 people were captured by the system. A system that he knew was racially discriminatory, that captured, of its number, 70% were African American. You cannot vote if you cannot get on the rolls, and you cannot stay on the rolls. And that's why we saw this year in Tennessee and in Texas, laws passed to make it harder to register people to vote. Tennessee, because in Memphis and Nashville and across the state of Tennessee, they registered more than 90,000 African Americans in 2018, and suddenly registration is a problem.